Looks like Leicester's is closed. Normally you'd stand on the porch waiting for a chance to get inside, and there would be an explanation of how Leicester's worked. Coming up on the blacksmith shop. Normally there would be a hot forge, and a blacksmith would be here creating either nails, horseshoes, or what other metal items, hinges, that are needed. As it was explained prior, because there's only an entrance and not necessarily an exit, the tour cannot actually have a working smithy under the current coronavirus conditions. As you can see, the flag is inside. Usually the American flags are indicators of whether a building is occupied by a docent or not. So it's inside, which means this building does not have someone to explain. And now, the Lewis Rich Hatter. Normally there was someone here. Let's see if we can't get an explanation.
All right. Okay, well, you've just come to Lewis Rich's workshop. This little shop was originally out in Middle Island, out in the middle of Suffolk County, about 19 miles east of where we are now. And in Mr. Rich's day, Middle Island was pretty much the middle of nowhere. His day was the early 19th century. He built the shop sometime around 1813. Used it for perhaps 17 or 18 years until the late 1820s to make hats for men. Now, not very many men in Middle Island, so most of his business was actually making hats for the New York City market. Now, hats are made of felt. Felt is a material made of animal hair that's matted together. I work with wool. Mr. Rich, on the other hand, would have worked mostly with felt made from beaver fur. You can make a lot more money that way. But regardless of what it's made of, it comes as a cone-shaped piece called a hat body. And, surprisingly enough, by this time, these are machine made. To turn this hat body into a hat, the first thing is simply to soak it in a tub of water, get it thoroughly saturated. Then put it in a steam box over boiling water. While the felt is steaming, it'll set up a crown block. These wooden forms come in all different shapes to make different style hats. And each style or shape comes in a set of different sizes. Crown block is set up on a large turntable called the bottom board. The hot steaming hat body is placed over it. Now, while the felt is hot and wet, it's soft, it's elastic, stretches, so pull it down, stretch it over the top of the block by hand. The important thing at this point is to get that wooden block into the top of the felt hat body, get this nice and smooth. Then I have a couple simple tools to use. The first is the commander, simply a cotton cord tied in a loop with a slip knot. It's tied tightly around the top of the hat and force it all the way to the bottom with the tool called a runner down, stretching and shaping the felt over the block and creating the crown of the hat. Well, that causes the rest of the felt to curl up. The rest of the felt will be used to make the brim, but first I have to get it flat. Do that with hot irons, heat it on the stove, and wooden tools called tolikers. Once the brim is flat, the next major step is to cut the brim and then to shape the brim. To shape the brim, I have other forms called brim flanges. The hat is pressed into the brim flange, covered with a wet cloth. The cloth is tied down. I use a spring clamp. It's pulled tight, ironed down into the flange, and left to dry. When it's completely dry, take this all apart and brush in several coats of shellac. Shellac, when it dries, will make the hat stiff and waterproof. Once the shellac dries, the 19th century hatter, like Lewis Rich, is finished with the hat. It then goes to the trimmers. The trimmers will put in the linings, sweatbands, ribbons, bows, and other finishing touches. In Mr. Rich's case, he sold most of his hats to wholesalers in New York. He sold the hats untrimmed, and the wholesalers would hire the trimmers that would finish them off.
What were some of the fashions of the hats? Obviously, tricorns were long gone, I'm assuming.
I wouldn't say long gone, but they were gone. Okay, by 1813, yeah, they're definitely gone. Popular styles would be what is known as the bell crown top hat. a rather exaggerated version of which is featured, for example, in the cartoon rendition of Alice in Wonderland. A shorter version of that, sort of a low-top hat, was it was called a coachman. That was a very popular hat. For farmers, they would like something like a billy, hat like this. A round high crown with a broad brim. It's just a lot of protection. It's like having a roof over your head that you wear with you. So.
Wow. How long did he actually do this job?
Okay. He was born in 1776, February 9th. He would become an apprentice when he was about 14, so that brings us up to about 1790. He was apprenticed to a man who was also, his name was also Louis Rich, in a little town up by Peekskill, North Salem, New York. He would serve a 4-year apprenticeship, so by 1794 he would have been a journeyman hatter. On the strength of that, he got married. He married a girl by the name of Elizabeth Wallace. They had 3 children. Shortly after the birth of the 3rd child, Elizabeth died. And he continued to work up in North Salem in this shop until in 1810 he married Charity Hulse of Middle Island. Probably an arranged deal. Usually he married the girl next door or the girl 2 doors away. He met a girl who lived many miles away, over 100 miles away. So it was probably set up. But in any case, they got married in December of 1810, and shortly after that he got himself set up in his own business. This could have even been a branch of the larger operation up in North Salem. It could have been sort of like a branch office.
Tell me a little about the story of why hatters were called Mad Hatters.
Oh, okay. I mentioned before the felt is made of animal hair, and the better hats are made out of beaver. To do that, you have to process the pelts. You have to remove the fur. Now, the beaver fur is a double layer coat. The outer coat is called the wind hairs, and they're kind of rough and coarse, and the hat is going to discard those. So they have to be plucked out by hand. And then the pelt is curried to scrape off all of the soft undercoat, and that's going to be then turned into the felt that's going to be made into the hat. Well, they had various ways of processing it, and they discovered many early on, much longer story than we can go into right now, but they discovered that if you simply used urine actually was used for a lot of things. If you used urine, it would soften the pelt and make it easy to extract the skin. Well, now we get to a situation where, of course, Europeans came over to North America, and they were very generous. They shared with the Native Americans all kinds of nice things, things like smallpox and measles and so on. But the Native Americans, the First Nation people, they were generous too. They shared with the Europeans something called syphilis. Now, the treatment for syphilis was inhaled mercury. So, anyway, to make a longer story short, they discovered a little shop in France was making better felt, making it much more easily, much more expeditiously, much more cheaply, and they wondered why, and then they figured out that a couple of the guys there were being treated for syphilis. There was mercury in their urine. Well, rather than have everybody breathe mercury, what they started doing is they started using nitric acid, and they started blending mercury with it, and this became a common way of processing the pelts for making felt. It was a process called carroting. Turned everything bright orange. And of course the consequences of that are that people are splashing around in this stuff, they're breathing it in, they're being exposed to mercury, and in fairly large quantities. But it still took a very long time. But in time, a person would start to lose their hair, lose their teeth, start to get the shakes, start to stutter, start to do and say silly and stupid things, and eventually go quite mad, and you would have the Mad Hatter. You would eventually have a dead hatter. Mercury is a heavy metal poison, clogs up the kidneys, the person eventually dies of kidney failure. Anyway, so that's the story behind that. Now, that brings us, of course, to the most famous Mad Hatter of all, the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland, who's not a hatter at all. He's a politician. His name is William Gladstone. He's the Prime Minister of England. Swapped the job back and forth Benjamin Disraeli for 40 years. from 1866 to 1906.
Ah, now this has been the second day that the village is open for the opening weekend, and how many people do you remember seeing? Was it a good turnout?
It was considering that. All right, I understand it's been on Facebook. I don't do Facebook things, so I don't know. Considering that it's been what we would call a soft opening, I would say that the turnout hasn't been too bad, and it's going to build as people become aware that we are open, and what the protocol is, how we're working it. We're set up to handle up to about 300 people a day.
Okay.
Okay. Go online and you see the menu. It's 100 spots for a 2-hour period, and so yeah, I mean it's going to start slowly, but I think it's going to build up. I'm optimistic that once people become more aware of it, the turnout's going to reach capacity. We're close to it anyway, especially if the weather's decent, not too hot.